I've got John Pollock here of Financial Gravity. John, tell us how you're rocking the podcast.
So I started with you with getting guest bookings. So my idea was is I've done a lot of PR and I've done, some radio interviews, but I'd never liked the radio interviews because once they're one and done and they're gone. I felt like podcasting could be a little stickier if I did a podcast interview, at least it'd be something I can point to forever.
Yeah.
So I started doing the interviews and we immediately got business from it. So it was well worth it.
Yeah, and so you've been, as we're recording this, you've been a client of ours for about 5 months, and it was like in July, 2 months after you started working with us, we're booking you on other shows as a guest expert that you said, I've closed enough business, make a return on my investment with you guys. Now everyone wants to know, how'd you do that? How did you get business from the interviews?
It's a miracle. No, we do a lot of marketing. So I encourage most small business owners to think like you're a marketing company first, and then everything else kind of comes around that. So you need to figure out ways of marketing. And podcasting is just one part of your marketing funnel. So if you've got a funnel and you're trying to put stuff on the top of the funnel, you're trying to create activity. So if you're doing a podcast and saying, call me, and then waiting for the phone to ring, that's not marketing. You got to build the funnel. You got to get people in the top of the funnel. You got to nurture them. You got to build trust for them to eventually call you. You don't just hope that by being on, I'm going to get lots of calls. So we had already built some marketing funnels. We had stuff like, text tax book, right. One word to 33444. That goes into the funnel. Go to lowertaxhigherprofit.com. That goes into the funnel. So when someone asks, and most podcasters are really good at this, they're going to ask you what the name of your website is. We do not give out our corporate site. This is boring. If I give out, and we're a big company, so we're publicly traded. So we're bigger. Yeah. But we run like a small company. We run scrappy, and this is one way to do it. So just don't give out the corporate site. Give out a funnel, a landing page. For those that know Infusionsoft, we use lead pages. So you're going to want to have some sort of funnel and then test them. If you do a podcast, two or three podcasts, and people go into the funnel and it doesn't work, then you're going to change the page up. That's marketing 101. And by doing that, it was easy. Some people would go download the ebook and then just call us. Some people have never called us, but we know they went into the funnel as a direct result of sometimes you don't know. If you do 6 interviews over 6 days, you don't know where people are coming from. Right. But it's marketing. So think of podcasts as marketing, and every podcast you're on is a different audience, and you need to share. So if I'm on your podcast, I'm actually going to broadcast that I'm on your podcast to my audience, and it starts to build on itself. And I think a lot of people make that mistake. They think I'm on, Jessica's going to promote me on her thing, so I don't have any more work to do. That's not true. This is a symbiotic relationship. You're going to promote this because I'm on it and I'm a client and I'm a good story, but I'm going to promote it too because I've told my story as well. We both win. Think like that. Think symbiotic. This is not old media where, they have all the power and you have none. This is the exact opposite. We are working together towards accomplishing both of our goals at all times.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. So when you're a guest on somebody else's podcast, you should look at that as content marketing. You are creating that content. Yes. And because I've been talking with some clients who we can't exactly find podcasts that are so specific to their niche, but there's podcasts where they're a good fit for. So I say, then take those interviews and you promote it to your list. So right. It's just a great way to create content. And then, Jason Swang said that on a couple of videos ago. He said 80% of the work is the marketing and promoting of the interview. 20% is the actual interview. So if all you're doing is going on the podcast and you're saying, it's happening, nobody's calling me. Yeah, what does that funnel look like?
Yeah, and I'd add to that is that by being on these podcasts, it raises your credibility. Mm-hmm. So they don't know that the podcast you're on has 6 downloads. They don't know that. They just know that, and podcasting is still really new. I went to the podcast movement, and I think it's growing and is picking up steam, but it's got a long way to go. We're talking about organizations that have been around for 100 years. I don't know how long radio's been around, but you've got decades and decades and multi-hundreds of millions of dollars companies, and we can actually set up $100 mic and we're in business. So,
Right.
but because of that, you're getting a lot of people out there. So, and a lot of people, I mean, my client base is 50 plus. We're teaching an entire client base about this new medium many of them have never heard of.
Yeah.
So there's constantly new people coming in all the time. So get on stuff. I mean, you may not, if you're a home decorator, you may not want to be on a finance show, but you might want to be on a home builder show. Try to expand your horizons, especially if it's really, they say there's riches and niches, but in broadcast media, you want to cast a wide net. The disadvantage of being on a CBS radio station, which I've done, is that it's too wide. Podcasting allows us to narrow the focus a little bit, but don't get too narrow.
Can you talk about, John, what you do as far as some people call it their retention plan or their sequence of how they stay in touch with the host or how they engage with the shows and the audiences after the interview? So we know you have the funnel, you have the landing page, you're capturing the leads there. What are you doing to kind of stay engaged with those hosts and those audiences?
So we do a lot of different things. So we continue to send out new content. The podcast that I've created is not a sales podcast. I'll do more selling of my business on your podcast or someone else's podcast than I'll do on mine. Remember, I flip it. Now, if Jessica's on my podcast, I'm going to be talking about her, and I want her to talk about her and why she's doing what she's doing. So that's one way. And by pushing that out, and by the way, when we get clients, since we market to small business owners, we put them on the podcast and we teach them these things. So we're helping them save taxes. I mean, that's kind of boring.
Right.
But when we get someone that saved taxes on our show and tell them, hey, tell us how saving $20,000 a year, how that affected your business. I mean, we had a lady on that owns several large hamburger franchises. And the name that you just thought of, yeah, that's the one. We can't use the name. But the amount of money we saved her in taxes, she got 2 general managers, and she's going on an extra vacation a year. That's life-changing.
And so
we want her to tell that story while she's telling her story.
Right. And let me get this straight. This is a client of yours, and you interviewed her on your podcast.
And then we broadcast that to all the other clients that now want to be interviewed on the podcast. So it's almost, even if we made zero money from our podcast, they love the idea. And we're going to a market that has never really heard of podcasts. No radio host is going to call them. So, and now they have a piece of content. I'll give you another example. A guy named Mike Basil from Daily Java. Great business. He builds cafes inside churches. Who knew? That's a whole business.
Who knew?
Great business. It's a fascinating business. It's a fascinating story. He wanted to get his out. He doesn't get interviewed by anybody. We interviewed him, and now he's promoting our podcast to his group that's never even heard of podcasts.
Yeah.
So you've got to have that part. We do paper newsletters. Paper.
Me too.
Yes. Yeah, paper. Because you got to get back into the analog world before you shift them back to the digital. Yeah. We do PR. We do radio. Still, as much as I don't like it as much. We still do some TV, which I don't like either because it's the wrong audience.
John, let me interject. You've got an assistant. She's on point. She's confirming your recording. She helped me schedule this call together. One thing that I often recommend to clients is to have an assistant that can help them manage it all, because even if we're sending you 4 bookings a month, you got to keep tracking and make sure those are getting scheduled. You want to track which are being recorded, which have gone live, because you can go 3-4 months of being interviewed, and if you don't have an assistant that's helping you kind of oversee all those new connections, you're like, I don't know.
It'll get lost.
They get lost. And so
I
know another client
technology can help you a little bit.
Yeah.
So like the calendar type apps help, but you really do need someone to track who you've talked to, and it's imagine being a doctor. There's constantly people will set an appointment and then they rebook. I mean, this appointment was rebooked.
Yeah,
and I didn't have to reschedule any of that.
Something that come up, and I just and I rescheduled. I rescheduled with your scheduling link, and then I emailed your assistant and said, hey, just want to make sure you got sometimes technology doesn't take it off your calendar, so I just emailed her and. You just showed up here. which is great. And so I always recommend to people, to have an assistant that can help them with all the moving parts, because, I don't know if does she help you with kind of knowing when the shows are going live and like getting them promoted? Do you have a team member that's helping you with that end of it?
Yeah, so she's in my marketing. So she's actually not my assistant. She's in our marketing department.
Okay,
and
cool.
she assists me that anything's remotely related to marketing.
Perfect.
So I have people that assist me that's related to other things. So as you grow your business, there's people that I don't even have an assistant.
Yeah.
I have a company with 20 people in it, with lots of people doing different things.
Very cool.
I've been told I need a full-time assistant, but that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, I just brought on an executive assistant to help me with my scheduling and my email. But the marketing, a person in your marketing department that is, making sure they're going out on social media, anything that can assist you with marketing, I think that is huge. So I want to keep this video tight, but this was such great information, and I think this video is going to be so helpful to people that are, rocking the podcast as a guest expert, want to see business from it. John, you're an inspiration and a motivation because you're seeing such great results. How can folks connect with you, check out your podcast, et cetera, et cetera?
So the company is Financial Gravity, so you can just Google it, but the podcast is Financial Gravity, and you can get it on the places where you can get podcasts.
Awesome.
And I actually would download the free tax book. Text 33444, the word tax book. Mm-hmm. We have a free video series at lowertaxhigherprofit.com.
Nice. Thanks, John. Have a great day.
Thanks for having me.